B-700 school bus. I'm going to clean it first, and I'm going to install the Holley rebuild kit. I'm only going to put in the gaskets on the accelerator pump and the float bowl, because otherwise the Holley worked just fine. So I'm not going to mess with anything else. I'll check out the needle valve and make sure it seems okay, because I redid the needle valve on the other one when I got the Holley rebuild kit, the one for the International. But first I'll start by cleaning and then put on some new gaskets. We'll just keep the rest of the kit in storage, just for if any parts need future replacement. Now I gave it a pretty thorough going over with gum out. Here's gum out. Of course you always want to do this outside because it's pretty flammable. We've got a bucket under here to catch any gum out residue, and then that'll just evaporate, just leaving the old dirt in there. I got it pretty well cleaned up. Just cleaned everything on the outside of it with gum out and an old toothbrush. Now we're going to take the float bowl off and check out those gaskets and go ahead and replace them. We're now going to remove the float bowl and accelerator pump unit from the main body of the carburetor. And often it can be kind of sticky. A good place you can pry is right here, and that way you won't mess up the gasket mating surfaces. You can just get the screwdriver under here, and I already kind of loosened it up. But see, now we're going to remove the float bowl from the metering block. Now here's the float bowl. This is kind of different than the ones I'm used to in the older style Holley carbs. It's got a large brass float, and the needle valve is in the middle. Here's the metering block. Go ahead and spray a little gum out into the jets here. Let's kind of get those cleaned out. I wasn't having any performance trouble at all with this carburetor, so I'm not going to take it apart any further. I'll just see what kind of gaskets I got in the kit there, but I'll just leave the rest of this alone and not mess with it. I'll just replace the float bowl gasket here, and we'll rebuild the accelerator pump. Now I'm going to remove the metering block. I was able to get a little pocket knife screwdriver down inside one of these holes and pry out so as not to score up the gasket mating surfaces. Now if it'll stay here. Now the metering block can be removed and we can replace that gasket. There's a new power valve inside the Holley rebuild kit, but since this one seemed to be working okay, I think I'll just leave it be for now. This looks like it has a date of '99 on it. That's the last time the bus was in service. So here's the Holley rebuild kit. So we'll just start getting the parts out and putting the new ones on. Go ahead and spray this out a little bit more with some gum out. Here are the parts of the accelerator pump disassembled. You've got the plunger on the bottom, then you've got the diaphragm here, and you got the spring next, and then you got this little rubber thing which fits up inside the bottom of the accelerator pump and provides a means of sealing it, and I don't know exactly how it works. It just sort of maintains pressure while the diaphragm pushes up so that the pump will function properly. So what we'll do is just rebuild, starting with a little rubber plunger that fits up inside the float bowl, and we'll just put the rest of the parts back on. The rubber plunger is now in. What you do is you just pull up on this little tip on the end of it, just carefully enough to get the broad part of the plunger to go up in there, and that kind of holds it in place. So next what we'll do, we'll put the diaphragm will go on here, and you got the spring bottom part will go, it looks like goes like that. Now we're ready to reassemble the accelerator pump. It's the spring and the diaphragm, and we'll just put let's see where it is here. We'll put the top part on now. Now the accelerator pump is reassembled, and if you got it together right, you should feel resistance on there, and you should feel a little blast of air coming out of that little hole there. That'll tell you the accelerator pump should be okay. Now I think we can probably cut off this little the end of this little tip here. Just cut it off and make sure the float can go down as far as it should, because on the old one they cut off the very end of that little tip. So we'll just do the same on this one. Trying to get some of this carbon off of here, but I don't think it'll hurt anything. I sprayed it with gum out, so it should be okay. Now we're ready to reassemble. The metering block gasket is on, so it'll go on first. Cleaned off the mating surface of the carburetor. I'll put that on first. Now the new float bowl gasket is on the metering block. You can see here that the accelerator pump air blast travels up through this, goes into this little hole and travels up through this tube to help propel fuel into the jets of the carburetor. So now I'll put the float bowl back on and replace these little gaskets too on the nuts if the kit has them. Here's the reassembled carburetor. I actually couldn't find those screw gaskets in the Holley rebuild kit. There were some plastic ones that looked like they would fit, but they weren't exactly the same size, so I'm just going to leave the old ones on here behind the nuts. I think that they were probably okay. Most of the leakage is coming from the accelerator pump. So now we'll go ahead and put it back on the bus and we'll just check the performance. One more thing we can replace without a lot of difficulty is the throttle body gasket. The throttle body just comes off with the screws on the bottom, and should have a, let's just double check the gasket on the Holley rebuild kit. Looks pretty good. Just go ahead and replace, because that's not going to hurt anything to take that off. And that'll help protect against vacuum leaks. Just make sure there's no dust on there. And I'll put on the new throttle body gasket. And just put the throttle plate back on. Well, you can see the position of the bus has changed. I was able to drive it a little bit. Performance was not very good though. It was backfiring, or it was just kind of popping under load. And I got it here, and it ran out of fuel in the fuel can, and I refilled it. And I was able to get the darn thing restarted. So I'm going to try once again here. I was having trouble with the Holley carburetor. I got it on the bus, and I was having trouble with it just overflowing. So I went ahead and put the new needle valve in there and readjusted it, and that got the carburetor going okay. Put a new fuel line on it, and it did drive. I was able to drive it down the driveway and drive it back up to here, but just acting kind of where I wasn't wanting to start. So let's go ahead and give it a try here. We'll see what we get. Yeah, maybe a little bit of action. Okay, good. That's the way. Let's see if it'll keep running. Oh, it's acting a little funny. Let's pull the choke out a little bit. Okay, it's idling. Let's just double check our carburetor for any fuel leaks. No, it looks okay. Let's go ahead and accelerate a little bit. Whoa. A hard time getting up on the step there. Alright, let's accelerate this and see if it tries to pop or sputter. Yeah, it's being kind of... See, when I try and accelerate, I can get up to a certain point, and then it just kind of tries to die. I'm thinking maybe there's a vacuum advance issue in the distributor, because it's running now. It's just running on idle, but see, I'll start to accelerate.